Well, joining me now to discuss what we can expect from the Knesset summer session is Lahav Harkov, senior Knesset reporter for the Jerusalem Post. Welcome, Lahav.
Thanks for having me.
Now that Prime Minister Netanyahu has a stable right-wing coalition, what sort of legislation can we expect to be passed during the Knesset summer session?
Well, first of all, as we just saw a few minutes ago, it's not so certain that Netanyahu has this stable right-wing coalition. But working on the theory that he will have it and he will work things out with Lieberman, a lot of those sort of right-wing proposals that came up in the last year plus since the election will have a much easier time going through and being passed as law. So one example of that, which is coming to a committee vote on Wednesday, is the NGO transparency bill, which requires organizations that receive most of their funding from foreign political entities to declare themselves as such in all published materials and in all advertisements. And this bill is very controversial because it really only ends up applying to left-wing organizations. There aren't really any right-wing organizations that fall under that category.
So in the past, the Prime Minister has on occasion watered down certain controversial bills, or they've been whittled down in coalition. Can we expect, should we have a right-wing majority, for these bills to go through in a strong form?
I think that there'll still be a sort of watering down of a lot of these bills. The NGO bill in its current form is watered down a lot from past proposals. But other bills as well, I think, will be somewhat moderated. Not just because of the Prime Minister, but also because of the presence of the Kulanu party in the coalition. They have 10 seats, which means that if they don't support the bill, it won't pass. And so they have a lot of power sort of to water things down.
So on that subject, exactly, even though the entire parliamentary right is now might soon be in the coalition, right, what can we expect to be the main battle lines between different parties in government?
Well, I think it's a lot of these sort of liberal issues and issues that are sort of about the balance of the different branches of government. I think Kulanu has really put its foot down on those kinds of things. And so I think legislation that's seen as sort of far right-wing proposals will be the battleground. Normally, I would say religion and state would be a battleground, but Lieberman has actually agreed to sort of give up on his positions and not bring up those issues as long as he's sitting in the coalition with the ultra-Orthodox parties.
So we can expect to see that a lot of the reversal of secular legislation from recent years is going to continue?
Yes.
Okay, well, once the government has its stable majority, what sort of impact can we expect the parties that remain in opposition to have on legislation? What strategies are open to them to influence the political process?
Well, when a Knesset member's in the opposition, and especially now that the opposition is sort of a more usual size as opposed to large as it was until, or likely will be until this week, the best strategy for the opposition is to think big by thinking small. They can pass sort of small bills that don't cost the government a lot of money and are often on social issues, and those kinds of bills usually pass. So merits, for example, is actually often very effective in passing legislation, a lot of times on women's issues, on helping battered women, for example.
With the support of members of the government?
Yes, and they're able to sort of recruit members of the government to support their bills on things like that. So they need to sort of look for the consensus issues where they can make a difference. Okay,
well, we previously mentioned Temple Mount activist Yehuda Glick will be sworn in soon as a new Likud MK. What sort of politician do we predict he's going to be?
Sure, so after Yehuda Glick is sworn in on Wednesday, actually, Wednesday at noon, I think that he'll surprise a lot of people who haven't been paying close attention to him. He has a reputation as a hardliner and as an extremist, but he actually is in a lot of ways very liberal and very willing to compromise and to hear people out. And he's consistently, when you ask him about his political opinions about things other than the Temple Mount, he comes down on the moderate side of Likud and not necessarily on the far right, not, on Beit Yehudi, let's say, which is further to the right of Likud.
Well, we previously saw during the Hebron shooting incident that he'd condemned the shooting. Are these sorts of positions perhaps going to put him in tension with some of the more hardline members in the Likud?
It's possible. I think he's very popular in the Likud. I was just in the Knesset and saw him at a Likud faction meeting, and everybody was really happy to see him and really happy that he's going to be a Knesset member soon. So he's certainly going to enjoy a honeymoon phase.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for, Lahav. Thank you very much for coming in, and enjoy the opening of the session this evening.
Thank you.